Hey, everybody, this is Sean, your local dietitian out of Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we're going to talk about how to fuel in between training times. All right. So, the first thing I want you to do is to think about, when do I train? What type of training do I have? What is the intensity? What is the level of hardness, the rate per seat of exertion? How long is it going to be? Right. So, basic things I think about with our current activity or training sessions is we have a lift, we have individual work or indie work, and we have practice. Lift can last anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. Our individual work could be same thing, 45 minutes to an hour. And practice, as we all know, depending on the coach, can obviously be anywhere between an hour and 15 minutes, 2 hours. Some places I've been before as well, sometimes it leans over to 2 hours. But again, my big thing is I think you should obviously train with intent. What are you trying to get out of the practice? What are you trying to get out of the training session? Let's maximize the amount of effort we put into that period of time that we have, and not just do a bunch of extra stuff to just do extra stuff and then go over time and go over practice and then make the athletes late to other things. That's not the example we want to set up, and that's not the position we want to put them in. But anyways, right? Let's say, for example, in the morning time, they have a individual training session and they have lifting. So that could be, with transition, probably a 2-hour block of time. Now, the thing you have to think about, which we talked about in some of the pre-activity training, is did they eat dinner the night before? Did they eat a PM snack? Those are critical, because you have an athlete that gets up that's not used to eating breakfast, doesn't want to eat breakfast, or doesn't have the behavior skills and tools in place to make them want to get up to come to breakfast. You really got to make sure they're eating those things the night before so they have some type of fuel in their fuel tank, right? I'm going to always recommend the athlete eats or drinks something before training, so they have some type of energy and fuel for their muscles and their brain and their body, rather than nothing at all. If you have an athlete that's just not used to eating breakfast, or they associate breakfast with an incident that caused them to get sick or not feel good, or whatever the latter may be, those are things you're going to have to work through, or those are things you're going to have to find what may work specifically for that athlete, depending on when the training time is. Obviously, getting a lot of stuff done in the morning is, I would say, more ideal, because practice is going to be in the evening. So, if you think about it, an athlete can have anywhere between 2 to 4 hours of training and more or less, depending on that day, depending on the season or what they're doing. So, training happens in the lift, training happens in the game, and then obviously training can happen at practice as well. So one of the first things I want to go over is, looking at these two images, who has felt like this? Sit there and ask yourself the question, who has felt like this during a game? Okay. If you don't optimize your fueling leading up to the game, and especially when you go on at halftime, if you're not optimizing and getting something to eat or some type of fluids to drink, you're probably going to feel like this in the second half. Now, regardless, fatigue is going to accumulate over the game, depending on the intensity, how hard you're going, the competition you're facing. That's all going to happen. But what you have control of is what you do before, leading up to that event, and the decisions you make during that activity or that event, right? We're not going to be able to get our fuel tank back to 100% at halftime. There's just not enough time. Sometimes you might have 5 minutes. Sometimes you might have 15 minutes. If you're, let's say, a tennis player and you have matches, you might have an hour in between. So it gives you a little bit more time to get something more substantial in. But when you have these, let's say 5 to 20 minutes or 5 to 30 minutes of time for a halftime, what can I eat or what can I do to optimize that? So that way, in the third quarter, or the second half of a game, the first 10, 15 minutes, I don't feel like I'm about to pass out, exhausted, fatigued, tired. I should have hopefully fueled appropriately before that, and also went and hydrated and ate something at halftime. So that way, if my energy level is starting to drop off that after that first hour, hour 15, hour and 30 minutes, right? And boom, here at this point, here's halftime, hydrate, eat something. Now I can normalize and pick my energy level back up, so that I can carry that into the second half or the next quarter. And then I can still hopefully play at as high of a level that I did in the first half, and then do that same thing, hopefully, in the second half, rather than didn't eat anything, didn't rehydrate, and now my fuel tank is at half, and now I'm going to third quarter with a quarter tank to a half a tank of gas. Instead of, all right, my fuel tank got to a quarter to a half, I refueled and I rehydrated. Now my fuel tank's up to like 75-80%, which is going to take you a lot farther and be able to allow you to do a lot more going into that second half of your activity, right? And that's where you ask yourself the question, do I want to feel terrible and exhausted and tired and fatigued and not be able to finish the game and possibly cramp, or then I can't contribute for myself, or I can't contribute to the team? Or do I want to take the effort to figure out what can I eat and what can I drink that's going to allow me to maximize that time that I have in the second half, so that way I can do what I need to help my team get to a victory? That's the questions you got to ask yourself, right? Because if it's important to you, you'll make the decisions to eat and drink something. And I'll kind of finish off with this before I go into some of the other stuff. But again, common things when you're not eating and hydrating, right? Fatigue, tired, exhausted, dehydrated, higher risk for soft tissue injuries, higher risk for possibly cramping, right? All things that could take you out of the game, limit your time in the game, or possibly affect your efficiency and how you're able to play in the game. Okay. And what are you doing to recover leading up to that game? So here's some really cool stats from Andre Iguodala, who's played in the league, I think, at least 12 plus years. He won a couple championships with the Golden State Warriors, right? Sleep, even besides what you're doing eating wise, is going to make a major improvement in your ability to feel recovered. Again, I'm not going to list all these off, but you see him getting 8+ hours of sleep or a certain period of time related to all these positive benefits in his game, whether it's points, whether it's minutes he was able to play, free throws, percentages, everything you could see went up and got better. Because again, his body's his business. He took care and invested in his business, which resulted in positive outcomes on the court on a nightly basis when he went and played. So if that's what you want, and that's what you want to get out of your respective sport, those are the things that you're going to need to do, unfortunately, whether you like them or not. And you probably don't want to hear that, but that's just what's going to happen if you want to play at some of the highest levels, whether it's the highest level in college, whether it's the highest level in professional sports, playing for your country, whatever it may be. There's lots of stuff you're not going to want to do, but it's stuff that you have to do every single day, no matter what, because your body needs it. And that's going to put you in a position to hopefully play at your best ability for your specific sport. If you want to learn more sports nutrition information, exercise, technique, tips, skills, more about strength and conditioning, cooking videos, or you want to listen to my podcast, The Roots Podcast, which is on Spotify, Anchor, and a variety of other different channels, you can hit up my Linktree link in my bio or go to my Instagram, overtime_Sean, and all my digital links are there to access all the information. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and have an amazing day.